atomic gigantification was a sweeping Japan nation when along came a dude with an ultra attitude, a common rider who's the greatest kicker of Japan. And of all, man, life's too short now, baby, to not talk big now, baby.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to a brand new episode of Kaiju Conversation. I'm your host, Elijah, and joining me, as always, my lovely co-host and editor.
Hello, I am Rex.
And here we are in October.
Whew, October already. The year is very terrifyingly nearing its end.
Yeah, I just saw a post the other day about how, we're down to very few months.
Right.
When this episode goes live, we quite literally have 2 months left.
Oh, don't remind me.
It's insane. This month, once we got through July and the first 2 weeks of August has just been bam, 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 going crazy.
I wonder if us being on the grind set of sorts kind of adds to that feeling or not.
Right, because it is October, which means you get 4 episodes this month, which I guess this year isn't very special since we've kind of done that literally every month besides 2. But, we're here for 4 lovely episodes with the theme of the month being... Should we review the month?
I'd say so.
The theme? Okay. Rex, why don't you let them know?
Well, today, dear listeners, or this month, I suppose, the theme of this month is something very special to dear Elijah here.
Yeah, I wasn't complaining about this 3 episodes ago. Quite literally, the irony with this.
As he loves his life and loves this genre of films, Elijah suggested that we do Zombie Month.
Which, when I suggested that, I should have realized that I shouldn't watch as many zombie movies as I have. Which, I guess I'm a little more acquainted, if we want to make that argument.
Yeah, if you want to make that argument.
Yeah. So we're doing Zombie Month. 4 zombie movies that are kaiju, tokusatsu, or J-horror adjacent, or quite literally the genre. So enjoy these.
Will he regret it?
Will I regret it? Maybe.
Real question.
Maybe not. We'll see. So stay tuned for all of the exciting content we'll be covering this month. But before we start covering the zombie content, Rex, how have you been, man?
Well, I've been pretty good so far. Busy week, but, not much you can do about that.
Anything exciting happen?
Just mostly kind of fair bit of running around, you could say.
Okay. Kind of busy running around, getting everything done. I know it's a big end of the year for you, so I'm sure.
Right. But we did get a Godzilla -1 trailer, if I remember right.
And we've officially dated this episode so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a -1 trailer. We got a Godzilla or Monarch Legacy of Monsters trailer.
You never know. We could, by the time this comes out, maybe a day prior, a new TV spot or something could have happened for -1.
This is true. But
maybe a Monarch one as well.
Maybe. But in the meantime, I was kind of wanting to chat with you about this stuff because we have 3 major things this week. We had the -1 teaser, which we have a 2-hour podcast talking about that, right?
Yes, in great detail.
But we also got the Monarch Legacy of Monsters trailer with some new stills. So what do you think about that?
All things considered, it actually looks decently promising. I was already more interested in it than Godzilla X Kong, the new Empire of Star Wars or something, the Last Titan. I don't know, whatever they're going to call it.
The Kaiju awakens with The Last Jedi and the Rise of Kong.
Oh, I was going to say that. No. I was going to say Rise of Kong. God damn it.
Godzilla versus Kong, the Rogue Solo story.
Jesus. But yeah, no, I was already more interested in it purely because no one God.
Godzilla X Kong DeLorean.
Right. But this trailer it actually looked pretty interesting, all things considered.
It did. I mean, the cinematography looks way better than I expected.
Right. I mean, I knew the visual effects would be pretty good because, like, having seen the first season of Prehistoric Planet, not yet having seen the second one, sadly. Yeah, that series was absolutely gorgeous. So I'm not surprised that so far we're seeing some pretty great looking CG. I will say, Monsterverse never beating those Heisei Gamera allegations, but congrats on Gauss for getting into the Monsterverse before Gamera could.
Well, okay, so before we talk about the Titans, so this movie takes place right after 2014, and the show. God, it's going to be hard for me to not call it a movie because the Monsterverse is just basically movies.
And very, very lore heavy, or what's the word for very consistent lore building comics.
Yes, very, very, very consistent. Doesn't break continuity at
I don't know what you're
ever.
talking
about. But it takes place during the events of 2014, directly after it takes place during the events of Skull Island, and before the Castle Bravo testings.
Right. Even focusing on one of the characters from Godzilla Awakening? That's the 2014 comic, right? Yes.
Yes. We have a character from that.
I keep getting it confused which one's Awakening and which one's Aftershock.
Aftershock. I do too, because truth be told, the Awakening comics basically ignored at this point, which is a weird thing to consider when they're using a character, but they won't put that in any of their omnibuses or anything.
I mean, isn't it in the most recent one, to be fair?
I don't think so.
I could have sworn it's in the most recent one with the new short story from Zid.
I'm checking real quick because I don't. Oh, okay, so it does have Awakening. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it's got Godzilla Awakening, Skull Island, The Birth of Kong, Godzilla Aftershock, Godzilla Dominion, Kingdom Kong, and the new one, Godzilla Fight or Flight.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, but that's the first time, the Titan mythology? Is that what it's called?
I guess.
that didn't include it. When they were talking about when they market the comics, they don't include Awakening, and while Aftershock, Skull Island, Birth of Kong, Dominion, and Kingdom Kong all seem to have some sort of connection to the movies, Aftershock was basically ignored the entire time in its movie.
Mm-hmm.
Which has always made that one a little weird.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it's exciting to see that. We have Bill Randa coming back as well.
Yes, poor John Goodman.
I was so when I heard his voice, I was like, "Is that?"
I was
John Goodman?
"Wait a minute."
Yeah, I was like, "Whoa!"
Did they bring back John Goodman? Or are they using archive material, or did they just get an actor to do a good impression of him?
That's what I thought it was. And then we had a shot of him, and I was like, "Whoa! They got him back!" Yeah, I was thrilled to see him back because he's he's the best Monarch agent, I would say.
Right. Yeah, I'm just glad to see John Goodman again. I love him as an actor.
Likewise. And so, I mean, we also got a still of the person playing young Bill Randa, and in the trailer we saw that one of his like bags, his Monarch bags, is going to be something plot related. So I mean, the
first teaser for the show I believe we got was like a picture of like his book.
Right. So this is kind of my theory. The movie happened. The show happens during 2014. Following the events of 2014, our main characters go digging. That's when they meet Kurt Russell, who then between those two they start just figuring out stuff. Which I don't think we're gonna get like a huge backstory. I don't think. I think what it'll end up being is we find out Bill Randa went to Skull Island. We find out that he was a part of the Castle Bravo testings. We'll have the stuff about Godzilla and the Lawton and all of that. During all of this, we'll have Kurt Russell also giving exposition and like flashbacks to the stuff he did with Monarch towards the end of the show. Because we do see Skull Island. They go to Skull Island.
Seemingly, yeah.
I think we'll go to Skull Island towards the end of the show, where we're going to get the new Titan. And I think that's where the movie will conclude, is on Skull Island.
You said movie again.
Oh, God, dang it. The show will end on Skull Island.
Mm.
And
I'm curious if we'll see Kong in it in any capacity.
I bet we'll get a glimpse. There is a few unused VFX shots of Kong, to my understanding, so maybe they'll reuse one of those.
Maybe.
So, yeah, I think it's exciting. We're back to Skull Island. There will be stuff in Japan. I don't think Godzilla will appear in Japan, which sucks because we were in Janjira. And then we were in Tokyo in 2014. Godzilla never appeared. And it looks like we do go back to Japan, but I don't know if Godzilla is going to appear, which sucks. It doesn't feel like it's, a Godzilla show or movie without Godzilla. I mean, even in Godzilla
series.
yeah. Like he even went to Japan in Godzilla the series.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that scene because it was on the airplane and the child said, "Mommy, it's Gojira." And she said, "Oh,
she's like,
honey.
Why would Gojira ever come to Japan?"
Which, I mean, it's a funny line, but it's, but still, he was in Japan. He appeared in Japan.
Right. I mean, yeah, it's just kind of weird that Godzilla's only appearance it's seen in Japan in the MonsterVerse is like the opening credits of 2014 with like the Castle Bravo scene. And that's
not even in Japan. That's like
but it's the closest thing to it. Right.
Because I mean, we've seen him in the Hollow Earth, in the Antarctic, San Francisco, Florida, which is the first time Godzilla's this is the third time he's appeared in the Atlantic.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen him. I'm trying to think. He hasn't went to New York. Is there anywhere else he's been in the MonsterVerse besides the Arctic, Florida, San Francisco?
He went to Boston.
He did go to Boston. Actually, that's weird. He's only been in the Atlantic Ocean since King of the Monsters.
I mean, I don't remember. I don't remember if you said this already, but Hong Kong.
Oh, Hong Kong. That's right. Well, I guess when you have hollow earth tunnels that make you zip around,
it's hard to go home.
This is true. But no,
Godzilla No Way Home.
Oh, there we go. There's the alternative title, Godzilla No Way Home. But no, I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm not going to go out and find a way to get Apple Plus TV, to be honest. I'm not going to go out of my way for that.
So you're just not going to watch it, or?
I might not. I might hope to God it comes to physical.
You're going to be waiting a long while.
Maybe. But, like,
I don't even think Prehistoric Planet's on physical media.
But in all fairness, Legendary might have some say in that.
Maybe? Hopefully? I don't know, I wouldn't hold my breath on that. Not for a while, anyways.
Or maybe I'll try the free trial.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the free market for a second there.
No. But, I mean, like, my only option to watch this is on my laptop because I don't have Apple TV and I don't have an Apple phone. All I have Apple is my laptop. So I guess, I mean, I could go to the internet browser on my phone, but then it'd be even worse. So I don't really want to do that. But, I mean...
Does your TV not have the option for Apple?
So... No, I just found out it had the Netflix option, but that's because it's all through my 4K player. But my 4K player, Sony, I don't think I can get a Apple TV Plus on there.
I mean, I'd say check anyways, honestly.
I might. I'll probably check, if not when I get home, a little later.
Right. Yeah, no, I'll probably check it out when it comes out.
You'll have to let me know how good it... I would laugh if this turns out to be the best thing the Monsterverse ever produced.
Honestly, very well could be, to be honest.
like watch it be... So it's 10 episodes, correct?
Yeah.
Watch it be 10 episodes, and it's the best things, like 10 40-minute episodes... And it ends up being better than Skull Island, Kong Skull Island, GVK, King of the Monsters 2014, all the novelizations and all the tie-in comics.
I mean, hey, if it has Kurt Russell stare down Godzilla at any point in the show, then it's an automatic 10 out of 10.
I mean, it might.
Or at the very least, it's automatically better than anything Wingard puts to the screen.
I mean, it already is.
I guess it already is.
Yeah, it already is. So, I mean, I this isn't really a breakdown, so unless you've got anything else you want to say, like, go ahead, feel free to move topics.
Well, to move topics, going back to what I said about Gauss joining the Monsterverse, I want to actually say congrats again to Gauss for appearing twice in this week with the release of Gamera Rebirth.
Did you watch it?
I have seen the first 4 episodes so far.
Gotcha. I guess we'll transition to what you've watched Kaiju Tokusatsu this week. What'd you think of Gamera Rebirth so far?
The first 2 episodes, I wasn't really feeling it that much. It was kind of mixed overall. I thought the fights were neat, but I wasn't really feeling the show overall. But my opinion is starting to improve a bit with episodes 3 and 4.
Okay. How would you rank them so far?
Well, I don't know about ranking, but, like, I guess it just... Probably, like, Jiga episode was the least engaging one for me, and, like, Gauss after that, and then Zigra and Gueron episode at the top. So that's episode. So I guess 2 is worst. After that is 1. And then episode 3, and then the best one is 4.
Okay.
I was trying to remember the order while saying that.
Fair enough. I get it. You're not as true of a fan as I am, as I have it all memorized.
Wow, okay, mister. I list everything down and then I write it down again and I write it down again, or something like that, I imagine.
How dare you assume that I wrote that down?
Wow, flips through notes.
I'm making sure I didn't. I can confirm that I did not write down anything about Gamera Rebirth.
I have my doubts. I
swear to God. Okay, so I did post it on the Discord server, but my phone is shut off. I am not looking at my phone.
right? But you wrote it down, and writing it down makes your memory automatically better, apparently. So
then you need to do better.
Well, shut up.
Okay. Is that the best comeback you can get?
No, but I'm not allowed to say my better ones.
Oh, I see. Okay. I thought you were just like, well, no, you. I thought you just tried to pull an Uno reverse, but...
Outside of that, what have I watched this week? Well, I also, unfortunately, in anticipation for Gamera Rebirth, I sat down and finally put on Gamera Super Monster.
Oh, no.
You can hear the energy in my voice just seep away as I even think about it.
You know what's sad about that movie?
What?
It was made in hopes that Dai wouldn't go bankrupt. Like they threw that movie together to try and keep the company afloat.
Boy, that worked out well.
And I'm pretty sure so Noriaki Yuasa killed Gamera at the end of that movie, and that was because he didn't want Gamera to suffer anymore. I'm pretty sure that's like it's like in an interview. He was like, "Yeah, I wanted to end Gamera after that, so I killed him."
Damn, he didn't want his baby to be just desecrated any further.
So Noriaki Yuasa even
Honestly,
knew
fair
how
enough.
awful that movie was.
Fair enough. I respect that. That's maybe the one decision I now respect in Gamera Super Monster.
Oh, I thought you were about to say that Noriaki Yuasa did. I was about to say, what? Yuasa's a very nice human being.
I respect Yuasa.
I respect him too. He did. He made the better Gameras.
Silver Witch.
Oh, he did, which was actually phenomenal.
Yeah.
If
it's
you want to check
movie.
out... Yeah, and we covered it last October.
Yes. Go listen to that.
Go listen to that. What else have you checked out, Rex? Because I don't really want to sit on Super Monster much longer. I feel like we're already...
I don't think anyone wants to sit down and watch it, but it's like 90 minutes long, which is 90 minutes too long.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I really haven't watched that much this week, but I did forget to mention last time that I had also seen The Grudge 2.
The American one?
Yes.
That was also directed by Shimizu, was it not?
Yes. Takashi Shimizu directed it. And it's sort of... It's like mostly an original story, but it does kind of take a couple scenes from Ju-on the Curse 2 and also the first Ju-on the Grudge. Like with the subplot with the... Remember like the detective's daughter in that film?
Yes.
Yeah. And like... her going crazy, that is actually redone in The Grudge 2 American.
Okay, interesting. See, my biggest...
And it also rips off Ring. Like the Nakata film specifically.
Which, so, like, Ring 2 or The Ring 2? Which Nakata
I mean the
Ring?
original Nakata film.
How so?
Because basically there's like... The Grudge 2 kind of tries to, I guess, further develop Kayako's character by, like, having a subplot about the main character in this film, who ironically is played by an actor in The Ring. She goes and meets Kayako's mother, who's, she was like an exorcist, and she was basically feeding all the demons she exorcised into Kayako. And this is explained in a flashback sequence that happens in basically the exact same way as like the scene in Ring where Ryuji meets with Sadako's uncle.
Right.
And then he grabs his arm and then has the flashback. Like it happens pretty much exactly like that scene.
So maybe
there's
I'd
also
like
the implication that Sarah Michelle Gellar thinks any Asian woman could be Kayako. So she becomes a racist.
Oh, lovely. Well,
don't worry, she's only in the movie for like 10 minutes.
Spoiler, I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, sorry.
So, I honestly, it sounds like I might enjoy it a little more than The Grudge, because my biggest
I think I liked it more.
Yeah, because my biggest gripe with The Grudge is it's quite literally a beat-for-beat remake of Ju-on The Grudge.
Yeah,
which
with like a
makes
couple
it,
scenes from The Curse added in.
but like it's boring. Like you know exactly
Yeah.
where it's going. It was shot at the same places. It has the same actors and actresses. Like it was just it's a like scene for scene remake, which The Ring didn't do, and I like that because it was scary and it had some new interesting stuff. You knew where it was going,
Like
but
I don't think The Ring is as good as Nakata's Ring, but I can appreciate what that film's trying to do and what it changes to an extent.
Right. Yes.
And I especially appreciate that The Ring tries to focus more on the actual investigation itself, which happens mostly off screen in Nakata's film.
Right. Which I appreciate. I appreciated the changes The Ring did. And honestly, I think I have to emphasize The Ring. But no, I appreciate the differences, and I think Gore Verbinski's probably one of the only directors to understand how to properly adapt a Japanese film into an American film. From what I've seen, at least. I still need to watch Pulse, and I still have to watch One Missed Call, but I'm sure none of those are...
I don't hear very good things about either of those films, so...
Yeah, and there's still like 2 or 3 others I need to watch, and there's like an American...
Maybe Dark Water will be okay.
Oh, that's right, I need to watch that one too. I forgot about that. But, okay, so, I mean, you've piqued my interest for The Grudge 2.
Right. It's not really a good movie, but I enjoyed it.
Okay.
And it is like the last Ju-on film to feature not only Shimizu as director, but also appearances from Takako Fuji and what's his name?
The Kid?
No, not the Kid. Takeo's actor. I'm trying to think of his name. Takashi Matsuyama. Yeah.
Gotcha, okay.
Takeo being Kayako's husband that kills her.
Right.
Yeah, it's the last appearances of them in the series. And even the old man from Ju-on The Grudge. Like the Peekaboo man.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
He makes a
in it?
little cameo in The Grudge too.
Huh. Interesting.
Still playing Peekaboo.
So, okay. Yeah, because I know after that, The Grudge 3 is very disconnected from the rest of the franchise.
I think it carries over like a character or two from The Grudge 2. Although I thought they died, but whatever.
Right, but I know, like, Shimizu had nothing to do with The Grudge 3.
No Shimizu, no Takako Fuji, no Matsuyama as Takeo. So basically a failure in that regards already.
Right, and it was straight to video if I recall. Like it wasn't well acknowledged.
I mean, I will say this: I kind of thought The Grudge 2 was straight to video for a portion of its runtime.
Oh,
which is ironic because it's actually got a higher budget than the first.
Oh, dang. Okay. Well, maybe that was just simply because Shimizu. The first 2 Ju-on films were straight to video. The first 2 Ju-on shorts were straight to video. And then The Grudge was his first theatrical film, but it still looked very low budget. So maybe that's just Shimizu being Shimizu.
I don't know. I think it was just kind of like the grading and like the compositing. Because it's mainly because the scene that made me think, oh, is this where the series goes direct to video was... Like, it's a shot of the house and, like, characters looking up at it, and the background kind of just looks really fake. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's kind of what made me think, oh, is this where they started going direct to video?
Gotcha. And then so The Grudge 2018...
2020.
Oh, it's 2020, that's right.
Yeah.
Is that linked...
I mean, that one's only kind of linked to the first film.
Okay, so that was kind of like a reboot. I know it has the same producers as the rest of the Ju-On franchise with like Sam Raimi and whatnot.
Right.
But I think their part was very disconnected. I know it's basically a remake, but it's also a continuation.
Yeah, it's not even really a continuation. It's more like a concurrent story, if that makes sense.
A pseudo sequel?
I guess it's, from what I recall, it's a sequence of events that's happening like around the same time as the first The Grudge, if I remember right, but it's happening in a very different location.
Gotcha.
Being
and of
the
course,
US.
Yeah. So, okay. And that was all you've seen, correct?
Pardon?
That
Yeah.
all of your... Okay.
Yeah, I believe so. All I can remember.
Well, that makes me feel good, because once again, I've beaten you on the Tokusatsu and Kaiju and J-horror.
2 in a row.
Yeah, 2 in a row. Look at that. I started
I have to step up my game.
You're going to have to, especially because I stepped up my game and I watched the first 3 Death Note movies.
Ooh, nice.
I watched Death Note and then the sequel Death Note: The Last Name, both directed by Shutsuke Kaneko.
Right.
Which
you actually, you watching those movies has inspired me to, like, once I finish Gamera Rebirth and Ring the Final Chapter, which, by the way, also 3 episodes in on that now, is pretty good so far. Once I finish at least one of those, I'll probably start the Death Note anime again.
Will you watch all the spin-offs and whatnot too?
I don't know if there are any spin-offs to the anime, probably, but I have not looked into them.
Gotcha. Yeah, so I watched those, and then I watched L Change the World, which was a Hideo Nakata film.
Yes.
And from my understanding, it is completely original. It's just mildly connected to the Death Note movies. It's got some connections to the sequel, but not a lot. I enjoyed them a lot. I understand now why people don't like the Adam Wingard movie, because admittedly, before watching these, I had a pretty good thought and view of the Adam Wingard film, but that's also because I had no exposure to Death Note, period.
Right.
So when I finally watched them, they're like 2 hours each, like 2 hours and 10 minutes each. Even L Change the World's long.
Mm-hmm.
And the Death Note movie from America is like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. I want to say it's got like a 90-minute runtime. It's an hour and 41 minutes, so it's 100 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
It covers only a portion of what the Death Note movies did, and I was told that was even like a very quick summary of what the manga and the anime cover.
Right. I mean, the anime series is about like 37 episodes, I believe.
So, I mean, that being said, I enjoyed them a lot. L Change the World kind of dragged for me, but that's because the story was over, and the way they set it up, you know how it's going to end. It's just this side story that you can be invested in, which the biggest thing the movie has is L is such a cool character to watch.
Right.
That's what keeps you interested. Everything else for me just kind of was like, whatever. I could take it or leave it.
Mm-hmm.
But besides that, in preparation and excitement for Gamera Rebirth, I found out that I can have Netflix on my television.
Mm-hmm. Congratulations.
And thank you. I was so excited. I was so proud of myself. I ended up watching Ultraman Season 2, which is only 6 episodes long, which I didn't like it nearly as much as I liked the first season. It was pretty bad, all things considered. But I feel like if I were to rewatch Ultraman Season 1, I wouldn't like it as much either, because since then I've watched Return of Ultraman, Ultraman Ace, Ultraman Taro, Ultraman Leo, most of Ultraman 80, Ultraman The Adventure Begins, and Shin Ultraman.
Mm-hmm.
So and I'm more familiar with everything else in between. I'm pretty sure I would end up not liking it. But I mean, I'll eventually find out when I rewatch them. And I still have to watch season 3. I think I might do that after I finish 80, just to finish up the anime show and then hop right into Tiga.
Right.
But
Ooh,
after
getting to Tiga soon, maybe.
Hopefully. I was going to watch some Ultraman 80 this week, but I ran out of time. I just got busy with everything else, and I was super tired. I ended up falling asleep, finishing Gamera Rebirth, so that I was like, I'm just going to go to bed so I can finish 80 later. I want to say I'm up to, on 80, I want to say I'm like middle of, so I think I'm on to episode 29 of 50.
I see.
So that's a little over halfway. I am hoping that by the end of this coming week, I can be into the 40s. I think that's going to be my next kind of push here, is watching Ultraman 80.
Right.
But we'll see. But I did watch Gamera Rebirth. Like I said, I've watched all 6 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
I found it okay. I have a lot of gripes with it. Apparently I'm on the like minority, because a lot of people seem to like it.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
I don't care for the animation, which is the biggest complaint I see.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like the show misses the mark up until the 6th episode, which I can't really talk about, I guess, because you haven't seen episodes 5 or 6 yet. But the show picks up with episode 4. I think episode 5 is a good follow-up. And then episode 6 is the best and the most Gamera the series gets.
Okay.
But it took 6 episodes to get there, which is my biggest problem. And only half the series is good to, or is okay, is good to great.
Mm-hmm.
The first
Right.
3 are meh to okay.
I quite enjoyed the Zegra episode, honestly.
I have a lot of gripes with the Zegra one. And to that as well, I feel like the show has too many tropes that the show has. It's not like kaiju movie tropes. Like, it's all tropes within itself, but those tropes, to me, are a huge issue for it that I'm not a fan of.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, like, if I had to rank the episodes, it would probably be episode 6, episode 4, episode 5. I'm thinking here. I have a list. I'm going to pull it up.
Someone, didn't you say you didn't have a list before?
I said I did, but I didn't have it pulled up. So my list of episodes, the ranking I would have is okay. Episode 6 is the best. Episode 4 is the second best. Episode 5 is the third best. Episode 2 is the third worst. Episode 3 is the second worst. Episode 1 is the worst.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's because episode 1 has the most characters and it's like the least engaging or interesting.
Right.
And I have a huge problem with how Gamera is portrayed in the show. I don't think Gamera is Gamera till the 6th episode. So
I think the first episode kind of also, part of my issue with it is, Gauss is kind of just Heisei Gauss, but
less
interesting
terrifying?
because it's just the same but not done as well.
Right. I mean, the show basically does the Godzilla the series thing, but with only 6 episodes and 45 minutes to do it in. Which
I think it does work in some regard, but it's just the first 2 episodes are a pretty weak start.
Yeah, it starts weak and it gets better, but by the end it's good. I think you're already over the hump and you're basically at the end of the show. And it's like, well, it's just getting good and it's already over. Like,
Right.
I could take it or leave it.
Right. I mean, it's nice to see Gamera back, but, I would have preferred seeing him in something that better matched the quality of his last 4 main appearances.
Likewise. This is pretty up the middle for me, in contrast to the last 4, which are basically his best works.
Right.
So for me, it's like, if I'm going to put on a Gamera thing, this is probably going to be one of my second options, not one of my first options.
Right. But I guess it's better than some of the Showa movies. I'll give it that.
It is.
I'll
It's
give it
better
that.
than...
It's better than most of them, in fact.
It is. I would agree. But besides that, I ended up watching The Warped Forest. I think it was last episode I may have watched Funky Forest.
I believe so.
And so this time I watched the sequel, The Warped Forest, which was a little bit better. It was a little less disappointing of an ending.
Oh, good.
It's only like half the runtime. It's like 80 minutes in contrast to like 2.5 hours the first one is.
Mm-hmm.
This one only had one director, and it had 2 Ju-on actors that I was kind of surprised to see. You have the detective. His name escapes me. Yes.
Yeah, he's in a ton of Japanese movies.
He is. He was in that one. And then you have the father from The Brave.
Kanji Suda.
Kanji Suda was in that.
Another actor in tons of movies.
Yes. So it was cool to see them. I enjoyed it pretty thoroughly. And speaking of that actor, he was in... I was actually surprised by this. He was the star of the last movie I watched, which was Blood from 2009, which I brought up when I talked about Red Tears. Mm-hmm. This was
funny that you bring up Red Tears, since bring it in relation to that, because both of the main actor or the main guy behind Red Tears, like the actor we were talking about last time, both of them were main villains in Garo Yamio Jurassic Mono.
Right. So I thought, The Warped Forest was a better movie than Funky Forest. Mm-hmm. Still, I won't watch it regularly. It's weird.
I think that's kind of the thing for... Is it
the Forest duology?
I don't remember who it was, but there was someone involved in those movies who's just done some absolutely wild, other stuff.
Yeah.
I'm seeing footage from... And in a Twitter video that I think Arrow Video put out or something. I don't quite remember. And some of the other stuff looked absolutely wild.
Just think, one day we'll cover those movies.
Perhaps.
You're going to have to sit through them one day, Rex.
Well, at least Hideaki Anno is in Funky Forest.
And I can say that he probably had the best part.
Damn. Apparently he's the lead actor in one of Hayao Miyazaki's movies. He's the main voice actor. Yeah. It's one of his more recent movies, too. I don't quite remember what it was called. Oh, it might have been Wind Rises, actually, I think. Yeah. He's the main actor in it. And then Hidetoshi Nishijima, who was in Shin Ultraman and Black Sun and a bunch of other movies, he's like one of the other leading actors in it. And then Mansai Nomura, Shin Godzilla's actor.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So I watched that, and then Blood was pretty okay. It was pretty standard. It didn't have anything too amazing. It didn't have anything too awful. Kind of just a run-of-the-mill, vampire movie. I don't really have a lot of thoughts really yet on it. And with that, I didn't watch anything else.
Damn. So that's all we've got?
Yeah. So why are we...
Where are the zombies? You love zombies, but you didn't watch any?
No.
Then what happened to Zombie Month?
Maybe it died. We need to bring it back to life.
Oh, we're going to have to, resurrect it?
Mm-hmm. Let's see. We got to pick one.
Yeah,
we got to pick one.
But we can't cut the recording,
Right, we have to keep going. The camera can't stop.
Well, your camera did stop.
For now. But we have to keep filming.
I don't have a camera.
We have to keep recording. So we have to cover something of The Walking Dead. What's the one film that we can cover before we cut about The Walking Dead?
I don't know. Are we going to cover how many seasons there are of The Walking Dead? Is it like
No.
7, 15,
No.
25?
No.
39?
Stop.
I don't know how many there are.
I can't take this, Rex. We need something that will keep me interested.
I mean, it kept audiences interested enough for it to last however many seasons it has.
Let's pick something else.
Oh. So no Jeffrey Dean Morgan?
No.
Oh. That's
something Japanese. Something Japanese.
Oh, right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, you're the expert. You should pick.
God, I don't have enough caffeine for this. I'm trying to think, but my mind's drawing a blank.
Damn, that's truly tragic. What do you have in your notes? You were really flipping through that notebook a while ago, so surely you must have something.
Let's see here. What do I have?
Yeah. Just like that.
Movies. Let's see. I'm trying to find something.
Find faster.
Give me just 1 second. I'll come up with... Oh, okay. Kamera o Tomoru na. What do you think? Do you know what that is?
I do.
What is that? It's written in my notes.
Yeah, it means don't stop the camera.
Right. We can't. We have to keep recording.
Yeah. It's also the title of the film of today's episode. Kamera o Tomoru na, or in English, One Cut of the Dead.
Ah, that's what it is. Yes.
Yeah, you wrote notes and you didn't even remember what.
I know, I'm a mistake.
Yeah.
So, before we get into this, I do want to stress this.
Planned.
I want to stress this. If you haven't seen this movie, don't watch a trailer. Don't read the synopses. Go watch it. It's on Shudder.
Pause this. Go to your Shudder. Get a premium subscription or whatever it is.
It's only $5.99.
They made me re-sign up for some reason. I'm very annoyed about that, but whatever.
It's only a $5.99 subscription. It's very cheap. If you want to, you can watch Noroi the Curse. You can watch Ring Spiral Ring 2. Sadako vs. Kayako, Ring Zero Birthday.
You've got the Meiko Kaji Female Prisoner Scorpion series as well.
And a handful, the Yokai Monster movies and a handful of other J-horror. You can watch all of that. You can do the 7-day free trial if you want.
They're brilliant horror films.
But make sure you watch One Cut of the Dead. Go do that.
Right.
And then come back, because it's better to not know anything about this movie.
Yeah, 100%.
So, with that, now that we've gotten that out of the way, we're going to go into the film. So, before we do that, though, we need to talk about the production here, because this has a production that dates back all the way to 2011.
Mm-hmm.
So, Rex, do you want to start us off?
Well, from what I was able to gather, which I think you might have more than me, a lot more than me, but from what I gather, this film sort of begins with was it a stage play, if I wrote that down right?
Yes, a stage play.
From Ryoichi Wada, titled, I believe it's Ghost in the Box, was the translation I had.
Yes.
That I believe it played from 2011 to 2014?
So that's what the research, that's what the articles you read definitely said, but that's not the truth at all.
Okay.
So it first performed in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
It was announced June 15th of 2011 by the theater company called Peace.
Mm-hmm.
It was their second play ever. Peace is a theater group that started in 2010. So it actually started before that. Before Peace was the theater group, there was a group called Beat of Beat, which started in 2006 and disbanded in 2009. Following that, they came together in 2010 and formed Peace.
Mm-hmm.
That was the name of the theater group. And they started their first play was a Fukushima-inspired play.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's titled, if I remember correctly, First Smile.
Okay.
Their second play was Ghost in the Box. Rehearsals began in late of June, specifically June 30th of 2011. And so for stage plays, your actors, so they wrote the script in early 2011. Mr. Ryuichi Wada wrote the script. He co-wrote it, actually. He co-wrote it with Shun Ariki,
Mm-hmm.
who is the main writer for it. They wrote it following their first play. They teased their second play. This was going to be their summer play.
Mm-hmm.
So they first performed it August 18th of 2011, and it ran through August 22nd, 2011, 7 performances in its entirety.
Okay.
And the thing about theatrical plays is once they're done, they're done. So unless they can do something to like bring it back, it's basically over.
Huh.
Well, 2 years later, in July of 2013, they teased that their 9th play was going to be occurring very soon. And then it was shortly after that announced that August 2nd through August 11th would be a replay of Ghost in the Box with some new actors and whatnot. Peace had went through some changes since 2011, but they brought back the play for 10 days.
Okay.
And that was where director of this film, Shinichiro Uda,
Mm-hmm.
went and saw it for the first time. So it only was performed a grand total of 17 times since 2011 to 2013, while the sites they suggest that it was this play that was ongoing for 3 years. That was not the case.
Okay.
But unfortunately,
were Ueda and Wada friends at any point during this? Because I remember in my reading it was suggested that, or at least it seemed to me that they were friends prior to a controversy that happened with One Cut of the Dead, and then since then they rekindled their relationship.
Yes. So do you want me to explain the background of Ghost in the Box before we dive? Okay.
Yep.
So it was a play that was a 2-act play. You had the beginning and the second part. The synopsis that I have here, it's poorly translated, but this is what it says. The first half takes place on the second floor of an abandoned laboratory. So that laboratory, and this is explained, it is Nakibako, which translates to the 8th Chemical Weapons Technology Research Institute of the Imperial Army. 4 members of a film club, a researcher, his assistant, a ruined geek, and a novelist gather in this building deep in the mountains that is rumored to have been the site of human experiments in the past, and a series of murders occur there. Just as whoever is the murderer, is about to stab one of our characters with a knife, the scene goes dark. The second half of this act takes place on the 3rd floor of this laboratory. 7 people join the cast These people are the director, the screenwriter, his assistant, the producer, his assistant's girlfriend, his friend from another production, and Hijikata. It's revealed that what we were shown in the first act was a movie shooting scene.
Mm-hmm.
Which, when you hear that, is quite literally the plot of One Cut of the Dead.
Right.
For your cast of the original version, and I don't have any like who played who. I haven't been able to locate that. I'm hoping eventually I can. But your cast for Ghost in the Box was Keisuke Takahashi, Yuta Takahashi, Kazuki Abe, Ryuichi Fukushima, Tomoyuki Mende, Suzuki Peko, Hajime Ishii, Satori Fuji, Nakamura Namura, Takashi Ito, Kazuhiro Ishihara, Atsushi Harada, Toru Kusano, Shinasu Sato, Yuta Osutobo, and Ryuichi Wada, who was also the director of this project.
Mm-hmm.
So they were the original people behind this.
Okay.
And what happened is, so in 2014, when the group was formed in 2011, they made a deal that within 3 years of the establishment of peace, if they weren't attracting 2,500 people, they were going to disband. If they weren't successful in 3 years, they weren't going to keep going because at that point they'd be losing money. And that's just what happened. They did not, while from what I can tell, Ghost in the Box was a huge success and all of their plays were huge successes, they weren't getting the attention or the returns they were wanting.
Okay.
So in 2014, they disbanded. Following that, Shinichiro Ueda approached them and wanted to, in 2015, development started between Ryuichi Wada and some of the members of Peace with Ueda, and development of a Ghost in the Box movie started.
Mm-hmm.
Now, by the end of 2015, that fell through. It fell through and it wasn't touched for about a year. In 2016, Ueda came back and wanted to do the film. He pitched it for a competition, but it lost. And what happened is he took that initial script and rewrote it. That it wasn't really a script, it was more of a plot. He took the plot and redid it, but he didn't get permission. Now, what was the same from Ghost in the Box to One Cut of the Dead, the structure of the story is the same, the setting is basically the same, and those are the two big aspects. Everything else is pretty much the same, or is different than the what is in the play, besides the obvious fact it's a film crew, right?
Right.
Now, Ueda didn't get permission at all to do this. He didn't get approval whatsoever, which started a problem. And we'll talk about that problem as we continue on with the development of this story.
Right.
So, following that, there was this thing called the Cinema Project, and it was by ENBU Seminar. It's a summer program for actors and directors who are young and wanting to break in, for them to basically go and learn, right? So it's in April and May. So by the time 2016 rolled around, the plot was figured out for this film. The script was not, and that's where Ueda was stuck at. But during the seminar, which, like I said, it took place April and May of, I believe it was 2016, Ueda was the director, and that's where he found his cast, was through that.
Right. I mean, I from what I was reading, they did auditions. The seminar did auditions for like 2 months, and that's how they found pretty much all the cast.
Yes, and from there they wrote the script. That's when Udia wrote the script because he wrote the script with the actors in mind. What's funny is the original story was about 3 adults and a child, and specifically the biggest change was Mayo, the college student or the director's daughter, was originally a 6th grader, but the reason that was changed was no elementary students applied, so they didn't have the character or the actor or actress for that role. So because of that, they ended up recast or rewriting it and whatnot, and stuff like that was what would impact the film. And from there, they wrote a script. The whole cast agreed to do the film. They got some crowdfunding, and from there, it's basically off to the races. They started filming
on a budget of about 3 million yen, from what I could understand.
Right, or $25,000, which
roughly,
or 25,000 roughly, which is actually pretty good. Like that's a small budget, but that's a pretty nice little small budget they have there, which
I think shows.
Film, yeah. So the film, the reason why it was a zombie film specifically was Udia loves zombie movies. In some interviews, he did highlight some of his favorites, which are Night of the Living Dead, The Evil Dead, and The Devil's Sacrifice.
I mean, I watched an interview with NHK that he did, and that kind of, I think he was actually saying quite the opposite, where he wasn't really a big fan of zombie films. And like people,
really?
Yeah, and he said something about how people are asking him, "Oh, what do you think? What do you think about the zombie movie genre and where it's going to go in like years from now?" And he's like, "I don't care."
Well, so from what I understood, he liked those movies. He highlighted those, but he also he wanted to do his own thing. And but he brought up how like Shaun of the Dead and Zombieland were 2 films that kind of broke the seriousness of the zombie genre, and kind of was a way to help him do this more comedic film. So I'm at least in the interviews he kind of hyped it up. Maybe in the NHK interview he kind of was a little more negative. I'm not sure.
I mean, it's only a 2-minute interview, the NHK one.
Gotcha. So once they had their cast and the crew, which, funny enough, one of the crew members, specifically the costumes director, was Udia's wife. And his son actually had a brief appearance in the movie because they needed the character. Filming the movie was a challenge. The first 37 minutes is a single cut. And it's on camera. Like, there's no, 1917 where it's, digitally done. It's all raw on the camera. They, went over that and reviewed that for months. What's funny is, so it took them 6 takes to do it in. And by the time they got the final take, the reason the film was done the way it was they had shot it and they had, done the walkthroughs enough that some of the events in that were actually stuff that just occurred on accident. So, specifically, they brought up how the blood splattering on the camera wasn't planned. So when they wiped it off, that was just something they would have to do in that circumstance. And it just so happened to happen that they did it. They just did it and they went through with it. So it's kind of funny that even the little problems throughout the film were just, that was all improv. That was just kind of what they had to do to make it work, which is exactly what we find out they had to do in the movie. I
mean, from what I was reading, they actually got pretty close to doing it right on their second take, but an issue with the cameras basically forced them to do it again.
Right. And it's kind of funny. So this is my second time watching the movie. I'm not sure if this is okay. So the first time I watched it, I loved it so much, spoiler alert, that I was like, I'm going to do that. And I had a project for school, and I ended up doing a one-take short horror movie that proved to be difficult. We ended up shooting it twice. I didn't really have a lot of time, and the light, like, it got so dark outside that we kind of had to do this this certain way. But it was kind of fun to do that, and it's extremely difficult to get all of those, like, the technical aspects of the film done proper.
Right.
So seeing stuff like this, at least, is very cool for me to watch. But going back here, so following production, the film was released. It was released the 4th of November of 2017 to 2 screens. It had 6 showings. Following that, it appeared at some film festivals and eventually got re-released in Japan and internationally released, gaining a lot of critical acclaim. And
it had a lot of good word of mouth.
Yes, that's how it initially spread, was through word of mouth, and that helped a lot. It ended up making, I want to say it was $125 million at the box office. It was over 1,000. That was USD. USD. Oh, wow. It was over 1,000% profits, which is really good. There was some, like, controversy if whether or not Udia would pay the actors, because it was crowdfunded and they were basically students, right? Who kind of paid to do it. And he later confirmed in an interview that he did, in fact, pay them later on.
Good.
But what happened is, following this, Ryuichi Wada started going public about how the film was not original like it was claiming to be. What's interesting is, throughout the interviews that Udia had, he's only said that a play inspired him. He wouldn't name it. He wouldn't say who made it. He would just say a play. And the beginning of this was the producers on One Cut of the Dead labeled the stage play as a, quote, original draft, not, quote, an original work, which there's a difference between the two. An original draft is like this original idea that it's like, this is the mock-up. This is like the first idea. So when you label it as that, it no longer becomes something that is an original work. You don't have to cite your source. But when it's labeled as the original work, that means this is what it's based on. This is what came before it. It is its own thing. We're taking from that, so it must be credited as such. And that was where the copyright issue that you brought up earlier began. So in 2018, following the release of the film, a lawsuit began with Wada basically planning on suing the producers and the director for One Cut of the Dead. There were some lawyers involved, and they were doing all the critical stuff. And within a year later, roughly, it was announced that they came to a resolution. So in the film, they added a new credit, which was citing Ryuichi Wada as co-writing the film with Shinichiro Udia. It also credited Shun Areki and Yuta Otsubo of the Peace Theater group in the film. So they ended up getting their proper credits, and I'm sure there was an undisclosed amount of money given to them for royalties for the film. Funny enough, following that, they had quotes from Wada, Udia, and the producer, which the producer's name was Koji Ichihashi. And it's funny because Wada's like, I'm sorry for making everybody upset, but I wanted the credit that I wanted, and I'm happy that we came to a conclusion. Ichihashi's is, we're happy that we came to a conclusion between the two groups and we can make everybody happy and it's great. And Udia's is basically like, I didn't realize that this was taking from it, but I guess it is, so we're happy to put the credits down.
Damn.
What's funny is this is a love letter to filmmaking, this movie is, but Udia's a dick. Like, the research I did behind this basically made me not respect him as a filmmaker, but I respect the work. Because, I mean, he stole, and he, like, argued to the very point of agreeing to them and still saying, I didn't think this was plagiarism, but I guess we'll do it. I was like, man, like, that's not... I mean, and to go, like, based off that NHK interview, if he's like, yeah, zombie movies are stupid, like, that just adds a little more. I'm not a huge fan of him as a filmmaker. He seems kind of, I don't know, or amateur mistakes, I guess you could say. Oh, I also forgot to mention that in the credits, it cited the original work as Ghost in the Box in the new credits as well, which...
Oh, good.
So if you watch the subtitled version, which is on Shudder or on Blu-ray and DVD, now out of print, but if you own it, you can look at the subtitles, at least here in the States. In the UK, I think the Third Window Films Blu-ray is still available. But if you look at what's funny is, so you have your main actors that are subtitled, like they translated the subtitles and put those. They subtitled the director, and they subtitled the writer in like the original idea by Ryuichi Wada, original work Ghost in the Box by Peace Theater Group. All of that was subtitled, nothing else was. I was like, wow, I wonder if that was like a contractual obligation that had to be subtitled in the foreign releases to clarify ownership of where the idea came from. So, I mean, honestly, I almost feel like the development of this movie is more interesting than the actual movie at some points. Like, it's crazy.
So, almost sounds like as much of a wild, chaotic mess as the actual production in the film itself.
Yeah. And but moving on here to the fallout also from this. So in 2018, there was actually somebody else did a performance of Ghost in the Box. So there's 3 performances. 2018.
Okay.
There's 3 performances of the original play: the 2011 one, the 2013 one, and a 2018 one by a completely different set of people, new cast, new crew, new everything. And it was filmed and it was set to be released on DVD. We actually have the DVD cover art. But because of all the copyright problems with One Cut of the Dead, Wada requested it be pulled and canceled. So it never got released, which sucks. I would love to see that. I'd love to see this performance.
So now it's just lost media, essentially?
Now it's lost media. I would love to see if maybe it could get distributed in the future.
Isn't today a time for lost media?
Yeah. So that's really all I've got for the production. I do know Wada enjoyed One Cut of the Dead and thinks very highly of it.
That's good at least.
He wanted to get the credit where credit's due, right? Like,
which is pretty fair, all things considered.
Yeah.
Because it's a quite an original, like, story, like, premise and structure, all things considered. It's not something that I'd seen prior to watching One Cut of the Dead. Right.
I know there's a movie that a lot of people... I listened to some podcasts about this movie just to see what I could find.
Right.
Unfortunately, nobody seems to want to dive into this movie. Certainly not to the extent I have, apparently. But a lot of people cited there's an American movie with Ben Affleck, I think, that's about like you watch a play and you watch a movie about making a play and then you see the play.
Okay.
It's been adapted into an actual stage.
Opposite structure.
Yes. Where you see the movie and then you watch how the movie's made, then you watch the movie being made, and then you watch the movie being made in the movie, shooting the movie. So I feel like I've kind of just vomited all of this. So Rex, I'm going to let you take the floor here for a bit if you want to bring up anything, and then we could move on to the film.
Well, there's not particularly anything major I want to bring up before we actually talk about the film itself. But I thought I was really surprised the reach of the film, because I was looking into the film did very well and spread largely through word of mouth, but I actually found a lot of pretty famous actors and a lot of people that you and I were familiar with, talked quite highly about this film. Like, the word of mouth was spread by say Japanese actors Koji Yakusho, Takumi Saito, Takeya Kimura, whom with the exception of Koji Yakusho, Saito and Kimura we've definitely talked about before in Shin Ultraman and Space Battleship Yamato. And then also Japanese comedian Beat Takeshi and Attack on Titan creator Hajime Isayama. But then even internationally, James Gunn, head of DC, Edgar Wright, director of Shaun of the Dead, and even Stephen King, a legend of horror essentially, have all apparently endorsed the film. I know James Gunn and Edgar Wright wrote about it on their Twitters.
Right. And no, this movie has been very well received. I think it ended up being the 8th highest grossing film in Japan, if I remember correctly, for the year. I think
it was 7th.
Okay. But it was top 10.
Right,
it was top 10, which
is very impressive for an indie film.
Right. I know they ended up having to work out the two companies that produced it, which was ENBU and Pico Poco TV or something like that. That was kind of the name, something like that. They ended up having to work out a deal with Toho to get it in Toho cinemas, and they did. It got released to Toho cinemas. The whole cast ended up showing for the premiere. And they did a Q&A after and whatnot. There's some photos out there of them all together.
Oh, that's nice.
This is amazing. This movie did exceptionally well. This was the dream for all indie movies.
Right. I mean, all they were hoping for originally was just I think it was the producer was hoping for about 5,000 admissions, because then it would break even. And it far out exceeded that.
And now it's streaming with English subtitles or dub on Shudder.
Right.
It's been released to Blu-ray and DVD in a lot of English speaking locations.
It's got a French remake.
It's got a French remake. It had an American US theatrical release.
There's possibly an English remake in the works, I think, or at least was.
There's been talks of an English remake, to my understanding.
And I was also hearing rumors. I don't know if anything actually went through with this, but there was rumors of a Chinese or Hong Kong remake that was unauthorized, potentially being in the works.
I didn't know that there was a Chinese or Hong Kong unauthorized remake.
I don't know if they were actually made, but there were definitely rumors of them.
Gotcha. Okay. And when it comes, I think, so there is a Hollywood spinoff. I don't think there was an actual American one made, it looks like. All I'm seeing is the French one.
Right, but from what I understood, there was an American producer who was looking to make an American remake, because he's this is a brilliant film. It's such a unique thing that audiences have never seen before.
Yeah, Patrick Cunningham was the one who wanted to do a remake, And it looks like the way he went about it, his company plans an English language remake that would shoot in the US on a budget he describes as fairly small. So, okay, it does sound like there is plans or desires to make an American remake, but nothing has come of it yet.
Right. And who knows if anything ever will.
Right.
I mean, personally, I'm fine if it just stays in production hell. I'm good.
I am too. We do have the French one, and there was 2 spin-offs from the original makers of this one.
Right.
So I feel like there's plenty of One Cut of the Dead stuff already.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I hear the French remake is pretty like 1-to-1 almost with the film, essentially.
I know Final Cut just recently got released by Kino Lorber in the States, so I'm going to have to check it out. See, I'd still be interested to see how it...
Yeah, I'm certainly interested in seeing how it adapts the film. Oh, damn, apparently there's even like one of the actresses carried over. But do you think we should move on to the film itself?
I think we can, yeah.
Alrighty. So, One Cut of the Dead begins like in the middle of a B-movie-esque scene. Well, yeah, just a B-movie scene of a girl with an axe fending off against her zombie boyfriend and eventually, unfortunately, getting killed.
And this is where we get kind of a twist, right?
Yes.
This is where
we
hear cut,
and then we find out that this is actually a film set with the crew, filming a scene for their zombie movie. Our director goes very Stanley Kubrick, let's say, verbally berating the actress for her poor acting and not expressing enough fear, and even beating around the zombie in his shoot, and then everyone goes on break to relieve the tension.
First, I do want to say I love the whole movie and movie aspect. I think that's a really cool idea, and I honestly, right off the bat, I think it's very clear who our characters are, and they never break that. Even later on, those characters kind of don't get lost, which I love. I love the fact that they stay pretty consistent throughout.
Right. And I mean, even from this beginning bit, we're sort of setting up for some things that'll pay off later in the film with like the director's little rant at both actors, especially when he just slaps the male actor.
Right. Yeah, and that's one thing this movie does really well is set up and pay off.
Right. I mean, not only is the first 37 minutes of this film essentially its own sort of like one-cut short film, it's also just setting up for so many jokes that will pay off in the last 30 minutes of this film.
It is. It's
a film that very much rewards your patience.
It does. And I'm going to I'll bring up here kind of what I've heard. And I don't really want to touch on this anymore after this from the podcast. I ended up listening to 4 podcasts today on this movie. And some of the hosts on these podcasts said like, the first 37 minutes of this movie are awful. I hate it. And I hate the fact I had to wait 40 minutes to get to the actual good part, which I thought was just redundant and stupid and missed the whole point.
Right.
And then one of the hosts... I mean,
that's kind of missing the brilliance of this first 40 minutes.
It is. I wholeheartedly agree. One of the hosts of one of these podcasts did say that this is easily the most ambitious movie because it has to start off as a bad movie to become a great movie. which I guess I'm just more acquainted with low budget Z grade films because honestly, I didn't think it. Honestly, so like it's obviously this first 37 minutes is a low budget production, right? It's obvious. I didn't hate that though.
No, I don't think like. I mean, the quote unquote worst parts of it are very much intentional and they're setting up for later. So, like, I can get not being sold on it at first, but I feel like once you have that context, you know it's intentional and like it's justified in the film because it pays off very well later.
Right. So I don't understand the criticisms with this movie.
Right. I get it on like the perspective of like your first watch, I guess. I can understand it. But
while you're watching.
Right, yeah. That's what I'm trying to say.
But once you're done watching, like you said.
Because the film because pretty much every single like quote unquote mistake here pays off later on.
Right. And that really, so those mistakes start to shine through. So after they call break, our two characters walk up the stairs, and when they get to the top, they meet with, I think she's technically the assistant director on the crew. The director's wife.
Oh.
I think she's technically the assistant director.
I mean, she's one of the main actors in their film, I guess. I mean, his daughter basically becomes the assistant director.
But remember, I don't think she... So, I mean...
Oh, you mean in like the movie in the movie? Okay.
Yes,
okay,
in the movie
sorry.
in the movie.
Okay, I wasn't entirely sure on what you meant.
Yeah, in the movie, in the One Cut of the Dead movie, I think she plays the assistant director.
Okay.
And so we go up the stairs and we have our two lead actors talking with her about the production. Right.
Yeah, and that's where she brings up like a rumor about like how the building they're in used to be like its front was a water filtration place or something like that. But in actuality, it was used by the government for human experiments to bring people back from the dead. She tries to continue, but then suddenly they hear a loud banging noise from a door off to their side.
Which, at this moment, there begins to be some awkward pauses.
Right, very drawn out pauses.
And at some points, it almost feels like they're kind of lingering, like they're waiting, like what's going on. I will say there's a cool little thing here that one of the stagehands says the director requested all the blood on the rooftop, which is a great setup. I love that setup.
Right.
For the end of the movie specifically, the movie, not the actual movie, but the movie. And during these awkward pauses, some just back and forth banter happens, right?
Yeah, with them, like they try to lighten up the mood, and the I guess assistant director lady, Miss Now, I think her name was. They start talking about hobbies, and she's like showing off her self-defense skills that she'd been learning. Right,
and following that, I believe it wasn't it one of the cameramen?
It's like the boom mic operator.
That's right. Because we end up going outside, right?
Yeah.
Where the boom mic operator's like just chilling and he's about to smoke a cigarette.
Yeah.
When a zombie shows up
and attacks the other guy named Kashihara,
who ends up vomiting on Kashihara and freaks him out.
Very awkwardly stumbling around this zombie is, by the way.
Yeah. It's almost like
almost like he's being propped up by someone.
Yeah. And following this, the camera follows them a bit and then goes back in to the warehouse.
Yeah, as Kashihara's arm is thrown in.
And everybody's like, what's going on? Like, what's happening?
Yeah.
And then Kashihara basically is thrown in, missing an arm. And they think it's all like a setup.
Right, just a little prank.
But it's not.
Mm-hmm. The zombie comes in, tries attacking them. Meanwhile, the boom mic operator is just sitting down very awkwardly, not having the time of his life.
And eventually
and then they fight off the zombie with his boom mic.
And then they shut the door, and the zombie, tries to go back in, but it can't. This is when they find out that the person is dead. They are dead. They're no longer living.
Yes, and he turns into a zombie.
And then he turns into a zombie and chases after all of them with whoever's holding his arm, which is hilarious.
They just keep throwing it around until they throw it outside, and he just goes after it. This movie might be one of the funniest films we've covered.
I think it might. I might take the cake for funniest movie.
Coming from a person like me who's not really a big fan of comedy movies, I definitely I've had a good time both times I've watched this film. I think
Likewise.
This is genuinely a really funny and clever movie.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree with that. And so following this scene, don't we get the director coming back?
Yes.
Which
so our camera pans back and we reveal the director is filming this whole thing.
So if I am remembering correctly, this movie does that a total of 3 times. Actually, no, it's 4.
Yeah, it's 4. Like 4 times.
But it's hilarious every single time.
He's just like,
I love
him.
I love it. And he, like, the actor who's playing the director has such a good charisma as this character.
Right.
It's almost like it's his job. Wink, 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 wink.
He's getting really into it.
And I love it. Like, it's so funny. I love how he's just watching and waiting to come rushing in and saying, action! Yeah! Woo!
He just wants to film his masterpiece, man.
He does. And he sabotages.
The zombining. What would you call a Shining parody that's just all about zombie apocalypse?
The zombifying.
That sounded even worse than zombining.
The zomboyant?
What? Zombie sleep?
One
cut of The Shining?
One cut of The Shining. There we go. Because it's one sliver of The Shining. It's one cut.
Ah, right.
It's clever. It's clever. And what's funny is the director, like, is sabotaging the whole time because he opens the door. Or no, first they're like, what's going on? And he's like, a year ago today, I was frantically writing this script. And it came to me. So I summoned the zombies. And
I sprinkled the blood on the roof.
And we're going to get a zombie movie.
And this is where the boom mic operator suddenly starts trying to get out of here. He's getting a little urge, you could say. He's not feeling the greatest. He's like, the director's like, where are you going? He's like, just a minute. It's like, what? Just what? And he just runs outside.
And everybody's like, no, don't go. You might die. And then we hear screaming. And everybody's freaking out, right?
And they close the door and, just deliberate a little bit. You could almost say they might be stalling, perhaps.
Right, because our Miss Mao, I believe is her name, she ends up asking the same question that was already asked once. And I love the fact that, like, in this, the actress who's playing our main character, is like, Miss Mao, he already asked that. And she's like, oh, yeah. Like, there's some really unintentional funny moments in this.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know. That might be intentional.
Well, so it's funny you bring that up, because here's another little tidbit of info about the production. Because it was all one shot, there were moments where they didn't know exactly what they were going to do, which led to, like, there were moments, like, where they had to improv because they had to go off script. So there's actual moments in this movie where they're just improvising on the spot. But because it's so cleverly written, you can't tell what is improv and what isn't. Like, what was actually on the script and what was. It's a genius idea. It's a genius idea.
That's actually interesting. I'm actually really curious on which parts were the real improv.
Likewise, but I don't think Udia would ever reveal what
Probably
was,
not.
Like, I feel like that might ruin the magic.
Right.
Speaking of the magic, Rex, where do we go following this?
Well, from here they hear a banging on doors on the other side of the building where someone is just desperately trying to get in, the boom mic operator from before. And, they let him in, but they're on their guard. Now's got her axe.
Are you sure it's the boom mic? Because I'm pretty sure the director follows the boom mic operator.
Well, we haven't revealed that yet. They opened the door to find the director's holding up the boom mic operator, who's now turned into a zombie.
Right, because he went chasing after him following the stalling scene. And then he bangs on the door and it says, like, let me in, let me in. And then it's revealed that he has a zombie with him. Which, he once again is a chaos god, because he throws the zombie at our main actress and is like, yes, this is how you should feel. Look at this. Yes. And
this is the
everybody's
real
freaking
face
out.
of fear.
And he's like, perfect. This is perfect.
This is a great shot.
Which I can relate to him. I feel like I would do the same thing. I feel like I might be that crazy.
You would do this in the zombie apocalypse?
I might.
You would summon the zombies?
Maybe.
Just to get a better performance out of your actors?
Absolutely.
Oh, great. I don't think that's the message the film's trying to spread to you. You're not supposed to be inspired in that way.
Man, I was inspired in all ways.
Well, at least if you become the new Stanley Kubrick, your movies might be good.
Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment.
Keyword being might.
Damn, okay. So, during this whole scuffle, it ends with Mao cutting the head off of the zombie, and some blood splatters onto the camera, right? And then they figure out, let's get into the car, let's go, right? And as they're running out to the car, the blood's still on the camera lens, and we see somebody wipe it off.
Yep.
So in the initial viewing, you're like, is this found footage? Like, how is this camera... How does this camera exist? Because even the director at one point during his first run-in with our three main characters looks at the camera and says, keep the camera rolling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he literally drops the title of a movie.
which makes me wonder, like it on my first viewing, like, is this found footage? Why are the zombies not attacking the cameraman? Like,
right.
What's going on here? It's uncanny in its presentation, which is brilliant, because you can tell something's off about it, but you also are like, maybe this is just a cheaply made production. Right.
Maybe this is actually just awful and there's no secret at all to it.
Right, which honestly, that was my initial thought when I watched this movie.
Mm-hmm. So, and that's what the film kind of wants you to think.
Yes. Even the director says, don't watch the trailer, don't read the synopsis, just go watch the movie.
Right.
So our characters run out to the car. They find out that the keys are with one of the zombies.
Mm-hmm. Who conveniently is banging on their car door.
And then the director, once
Comes
again...
from the opposite door, and he's like, action!
And then he opens the door to throw her. I'm pretty sure he actually grabs her and throws her out the door. And the zombie starts chasing her, and our camera follows. But then it falls to the ground, and it's just there.
He runs into the girl, and then, just gets completely knocked over.
And it just sits there. And at first you think, oh, this is kind of a cool shot.
Right. But then the girl fights off the zombie and leaves the shot, and it's just stuck there. And it's like, wait a minute.
It's like, what's going on?
And then someone picks up the camera.
And then it suddenly becomes way more active. It starts getting very, very... There's a lot of zooms as they run through the field. There's a lot of back and forth. There's some shaky cam. It's like, what's going on?
It's almost like someone slightly less experienced with the camera is using it.
Right? And at this moment, this was where I was like, whoa, the location they're at is beautiful. It's very detailed. I love the setting. It's all staged very well.
Mm-hmm. You also see both the actress and the camera operator just both fall over while running through this field.
Right. And eventually she goes down into this little, cellar-looking thing.
Something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, still being chased by the zombie. And then when she gets to the end, there's another zombie, the one from earlier. The original zombie. Who's finally active. He's actually moving like a human being, albeit both are very, very, very exaggerated zombies.
Yes. Which eventually, doesn't she just run back to the car now?
No, first she seemingly is about to die, but then her boyfriend comes back and saves her, and then they run back to not the car, but into the building they were originally in.
Right. And so when they run into the building, you have Miss Mal, the boyfriend, and her all in there, kind of where they started. And she's been limping this whole time. Mm-hmm. And she's got this mark on her leg. And Miss Mal's like, did you get
spot?
Yeah. And Miss Mal's like, did you get bit? And she's like, I don't know, maybe.
I don't know.
And then Miss Mal grabs the axe and is like, we better make sure. It's just for precaution.
I'm calm.
I'm very calm. I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes insane and tries to murder this woman.
Yeah.
So what's funny is, as she's running away, the boyfriend grabs her and is holding her, and in the background she does the POW thing that she set up.
Oh yeah.
Which I love that. I love that little detail in the background.
Right. I love how even before this first sequence ends, there's just very little things that are happening, these little subversions. You've got the movie within the movie in the very first scene. You've got the insane director, and you've just got the little payoff with the palm gag. Just the first payoff with it, I should say.
Right.
So you've still got these little things that are keeping you interested in this, where instead of you just having to sit through just a generic, terrible Z-grade zombie movie. It's a bit more than just that.
Right. And I think something else that helps that is one of the biggest problems with zombie movies is they're naturally slow. Mm-hmm. They're very slow burning movies because the zombies don't move very fast. Mm-hmm. It's hard to keep them interesting because they're just walking corpses, right?
Right.
The best part of Night of the Living Dead is the ending where the zombies start tearing into the house.
Mm-hmm. And some of the most, like, especially in the modern day, you've seen sort of a shift in a lot of big zombie movies where, you know, zombies start running a lot more, like Train to Busan or Zack Snyder's like Dawn of the Dead remake, for example.
Right. And I think a lot of that's just because like zombies are not a very antagonizing monster. They're
not like they used to be, no.
Right. So like in this, they're very traditional zombies. So how do you make that interesting for a 37-minute long single take film? Which I might add doesn't feel like 37 minutes, and it's all because the camera's never not moving. Mm-hmm. There is no fixed shot in this movie. Mm-hmm. Any sound, any motion, there is a camera reaction.
The only fixed moment is when when the director pushes her out the car and the cameraman bumps into the main actress and it just falls. That's it. Right. That's the only fixed moment.
And besides that, and following that, they know that they've had a fixed moment, so then they get even more crazy and more action-packed with the camera motions, with the zooming and the shaky cam, and it just keeps you like visually like trying to keep up, mm-hmm. which is genius because it keeps it interesting. It doesn't make it a boring Z-grade zombie movie that you see a lot of times.
Right.
So during the whole chase sequence, Miss Mal like karate kicks all the other zombies and is like out to
and even
kill.
The director.
Even the director's like, action!
And then he just kicks.
And then he disappears. So we continue following our main actress as she gets to the rooftop, where she seemingly is stuck, and Miss Mal's up there.
Mm-hmm. But her boyfriend comes to save the day again.
But then we get another... So we don't get a payoff yet. Well, we get a little bit of a payoff. She grabs his arm and twists it like she's going to break it. And that was set up earlier during the whole self-defense training when they're following their like break on filming.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that also gets another sort of payoff when she just keeps going, pum, pum.
Right.
But the camera is only showing our lead actress just lingering on her for a while. Almost like some stuff's happening behind the camera.
And there's a lot of screaming and whatnot, and it's like, okay. So mm-hmm. This is another
and the screaming seems to be happening in weird directions as well.
Right. And it's like, okay, what's going on? What's happening? And eventually, after like a solid 45 seconds, we're back, and the boyfriend has killed Miss Now with an axe to the head. But for some reason, our main actress, she decides to walk away, which is a little odd. She goes down and eventually finds a little shed to sit in, mm-hmm. Which the shed has a pentagram on it, which is kind of like, oh, what's going on? So while she's in this shed, she finds out that the scratch was actually just makeup.
Right.
And then she sees something off camera and like hides. And then we just see these legs and then they walk away. And like her reaction is like really intense. And we're like, what's this? What's going on?
Well, I mean, it's clearly meant to be a zombie.
Right. But like which zombie? Like where's this one from? Is this something like, because no other zombie has looked like this. What's going on here? So as she exits the building, she finds an axe and says, oh, an axe. Lucky me. And at this point, I was like, is this just a comedy? Like, upon my initial viewing, it's like, is this just supposed to be a joke? I was so confused. So she walks back up, right?
Yeah, she goes back up to meet with her boyfriend again, and he's now a zombie.
And then the director, so the zombie starts approaching her, and it's a mirror of the beginning of the film where
Right.
he'll stop and then he'll go and then he'll stop and then he'll go. And eventually she's like, I love you. And then boom, axe goes flying and his head is seemingly chopped off.
It's hilarious how many times they stop to go, I love you during this.
It is.
And it pays off amazingly later.
It does. And then the director suddenly appears once more.
Mm-hmm. He's like, why did you kill my actor? And then she chases him with an axe and kills him.
And then, yeah, so
Which honestly fair after his Stanley Kubrick-esque behavior.
And I loved it. It was so funny. It was like, yes, this is how this movie should end. So after this, like, the way the color grading is, she looks soulless in her eyes, which is like, whoa, what's going on? Even the music's changed.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just get this tracking shot of her walking. And then suddenly the camera begins to rise with her turning and facing the camera. And as the camera continues to rise, we find out she's standing in the middle of a pentagram. And this is where the title sequence happens, and then the credits roll. So upon my initial viewing, I was like, is this it? Like, what?
What's so special about this?
What's so special? And then at the end, we hear another cut, and then the camera starts to move, and at this point, the camera, the film has also changed to kind of being like on a TV screen.
Mm-hmm.
Which then we cut to an actual movie shot with the label of 1 month later.
Or 1 month before.
Yes, 1 month before.
And that's where we see our director directing a scene in a completely different movie with an actor who would go on to be a zombie in the one cut of that dead movie in the movie.
Right.
And I guess also the real movie by extension.
Yeah.
It's one way to phrase it.
So following the advertisement shooting, he's met with two producers. And they ask him to do this movie for their zombie channel that they're opening. It's a zombie movie that is one take and it's live on television. And he is supposed to deliver an average product. And he accepts it.
And that's where we get our title card.
Yeah, which is pretty... It's kind of shot in the way of like a retro film with the flickering and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And the soundtrack's pretty decent, all things considered, I think, especially for this opening. It's like really, really intense, and I love it.
Right.
Which I love. Like, this was a pleasant surprise upon my initial viewing. Like, the first part's the movie and the second part's the making of the movie. Just like, I love that. Like, that's...
Right.
That premise is so interesting, and I love that.
And then the next thing we cut to is Self-Defense for Women, where the woman who plays now in the final film is learning her little palm technique.
And this is where the payoff, it's paid off earlier, right? This was established, and now we get the payoff in the background for that. And things are slowly starting to come together, which is a very nice surprise.
Right. We also learn that she is actually the director's wife, and they have a daughter named Mao.
Who, then we cut to Mao, if I remember correctly, on a film set. Where she's just a
perfectionist.
Like a production assistant, which... She's trying to get this child to cry actual tears. And, like, the mother's like, we were told that it can just be teardrops. Like, we don't have to do the whole crying thing. And, like, she, like, breaks contract and, like, tells them to do something they're not supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the director, and I think it's probably the producers, like, hold on a minute, wait up. And then she calls the mother an old hag.
Yeah.
And, like, there's a whole problem, because she's like, this is art. Like, we need to be doing things on the camera, not fake. And I kind of relate to Mao. I'm like, yeah, Put it on the camera. Don't do the put in post or anything like that. Like, make it real. And so now they have to like try and keep the mother and daughter from like walking off set, and they end up kicking Mao off as her father comes up, and they have a little exchange. And the father apologizes to the director, and then they go on their way back to home, where they are watching the director's advertisements.
Mm. I mean, the daughter kind of storms off on her own first, though.
This is true. She does.
Which is where we're sort of establishing that their relationship is a little, I guess, strained. It's not like a terrible relationship compared to a lot of
it's just distant.
Other movies. Right.
So while they're at home and they're watching their dad's show, she asks to change the program to this interview with this actor. And she's like daydreaming about this actor, where he reveals he's going to be in a horror movie. And it just so happens that movie is what her dad's working on, One Cut of the Dead.
Yeah. And from here we transition into sort of the cast and crew's like first meeting. I don't know exactly what the correct term for this. It's like where is it like the first script reading? Is that what it's called?
It would be the first script read. Yes,
okay.
where you meet your cast and your crew and you read through the scripts. Which right off the bat there's problems. Some people aren't reading emails. There's scheduling conflicts with outside parties.
A woman brings her baby in to the room.
And there's just a whole thing, and it becomes problematic. But the director just has to go through it. He ends up having to call like a 5-minute break to like calm it down. And there's even discussions on like how does the script work? My agency won't let me do certain things, like
right.
And there's just a whole slew of problems following this.
Mm-hmm.
But then we're kind of so at this moment they start kind of fast forwarding through a lot of production, and I mean we get little snippets of them like working on it, but they really fast track us to the day of, if I remember correctly.
Right, yeah. I mean, yeah, we see a bit. This is mostly just kind of like between like this first meeting and like the day of. It's just kind of set up for some more gags later. Like we find out one of the actors, Mr. Hosoda, is a very much
raging
an alcoholic.
Who gets drunk all the time, and that's why his
wife left him.
His wife left him, and his daughter hates him.
Yeah.
One of our actors has a diarrhea problem if he doesn't drink the right water.
Right. Or not even one of the actors. He's just like the boom mic operator.
Oh, that's right. And then we have... I'm trying to remember what else.
The cameraman has like a bad back, so he doesn't know if he'll be able to make it through the whole shoot.
One of your actors...
All the while, the director's wife has been reading the script again and again and again at home.
Which we then find out that she was an actress at one point, but she quit. Mm-hmm. And she hasn't done anything besides her hobbies, which is self-defense and reading
a bunch of other things.
Yeah. And reading her husband's scripts.
Right.
And so as we continue, we get a little bit development on the whole like strain with the director and his daughter and their like strained relationship and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And
we
then
get some rehearsals, them working on getting every movement down. Mm-hmm. The main male actor being a bit of an a-hole.
And arguing with the director on how things should be.
Right.
And honestly, at this point, I was like, man, honestly, watching this movie is better than the actual movie they're making. But I love that. Like, I love film. So being able to watch a movie and then watch how it was made, to me, is just as rewarding, if not more, than watching the actual film.
Right.
What's funny is after this movie, I went out and I bought teardrops to use for actors. And I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I bought like this weed sprayer for like my blood sprayer. But while watching it on the second viewing, I noticed that the way they did the blood spray is they had a stagehand with like this tube that would suck up some of the blood and then spray it. Like they would suck it and then blow it.
Right.
And I'm like, man, I need to do one of those. I'd love to do that. And that's kind of ingenious. Like, I would think you would need an actual sprayer. Like, there's actual sprayers you can purchase that they use for spraying blood and whatnot. But no, they have this little, like, vinyl tube, and they're just using that with one person that's spraying the blood, which is a really good idea. Definitely better than my weed sprayer idea that doesn't work that well.
I mean, hey, man, you just gotta be inventive with film when you have no budget.
This is you have to. You absolutely do. So now we basically move up to the day of production, right? About 6 hours prior.
Right.
Where the first problem happens, and that's the actor who's supposed to play the director and the actress who's supposed to play the assistant director
are having an affair. Car accident as well.
They get caught up in a car accident and they were having an affair, and they end up having to cut them from the film. And they're like, well, what do we do? Like, we need these roles filled. And that's where our actual director takes the job of the actor for the director. And Miss Mao ends up taking the role as the assistant actress, or the assistant director. And this is where we find out that, well, not here, but it's a little, I'll bring it up later on, the funny thing about Miss Mao being an actress. And this is where we get our final cast and crew, and basically it's go time. They're setting everything up.
Right, and also earlier there were a bit more set up with like the boom operator accidentally drinking the wrong water, not his personal like private water bottle, and then also somewhat. Like one of the crew members bringing in some sake for the cast and crew to celebrate the day before, and the raging alcoholic kind of having his eye caught by that, you could say.
Right, and then so after this, they start setting up. Right, they're getting ready to film.
Mm-hmm.
And we get the movie again at a different angle, which I think's great. The setup to them actually starting filming is kind of exciting. Even doing the countdown and whatnot and going. So at this moment, we see the events that we saw for the first 37 minutes. We watch that all over again. Right. Except this time, all of our questions are answered. The boom operator had diarrhea.
Right. And so we get a scene dedicated to him just being so confused as to where to go, eventually going outside, being caught by a crew member and screaming, going to a corner to take a dump, and the crew just figuring out what to do with him, eventually deciding to make him a zombie and putting on the makeup while he's taking a dump.
And even before that, we have our main zombie, which he's drunk.
Oh,
and
right.
So the actual the director has to be his use him as a puppet, and his vomit's real vomit. They end up, because of the problems that have already ensued, they have some delays, so they tell the three main actors to stall, and so we get the stalling. during this, it's intercut with like the technical crew, like doing sound and whatnot. And during this, the daughter brings up how her mom was a great actor. The question, it's said that her mom's a great actress, and she says she quit because she at one point almost broke an actor's arm and
got
had to
banned
quit
on all
after that.
sets or something like that.
Yeah, because she's so extreme with her roles. Which that's funny because we'll bring it up here in a little bit. So then they're basically like having to find a way to keep going through the script to get to the end of the movie.
Right.
The director, the reason he says keep the camera rolling is because he realizes they've gone off the script very quickly, but he doesn't want them to pull it, so he has to come up with a clever way to like get them to not pull it off the air, because at one point the producers are saying let's put up the title card and just move on. There's, if I remember correctly, so the next problem, I mean, the guy who's drunk, they're trying to get him to follow through.
There's a whole bit with the boom mic operator and doing his makeup, turning him into a zombie.
Once they get into the car, they're trying to find a way to move on past that scene where the director comes in and opens the car door and pushes her out. She hits the camera operator, who falls and is seemingly unable to get up. Right. So then we see that the assistant camera operator grabs the camera, and that's why it starts getting all zoom in and out and shaky. And then she
falls over, but our zombie actor helps her back up.
And it continues to like follow through this. I'm trying to remember what the next problem was. What was it, Rex?
I mean, well, it's intercut while she's running away. It's intercut with the main male actor, whom the director had previously slapped, which is in the sequence revealed to have been completely off script, and likely just because he was completely fed up with said actor. And so he's like, what the hell? Even my dad never dared to hit me. And then the director's wife, the rather intense actress, just slaps him. And he's like, go, continue filming.
And so he ends up being a little late, but he comes in. And then they go back to where they started, which this is where Miss Mao goes insane.
Right.
And like that's off script. So now it's becoming this like chasing, like this slasher chasing movie.
Yeah, they try to get the zombies to stop her, but then she just kicks them all away, including the director.
Which none of that was planned, and they're actually like, so on a real set, if this were to happen, there would be some like definite law problems. There'd be some like major
there would be
problems.
A lot of lawsuits.
A lot of lawsuits because you're not supposed to actually do that unless you're given consent. Any like intimate coordinator, intimate coach, from what little I've had experience with them, would like die in an event like this because their whole thing is to like coach the actors and actresses to have intimate physical contact and not actually like do anything.
Right.
Once our main actress gets to the top, there's the problem of Miss Mao going crazy. So the reason that the camera lingers on her for so long is they're trying to knock out Miss Mao.
The whole crew is trying to just knock her out and then just put on like a fake axe in her head so that she's dead. And so like the what's his name? The lead male actor just starts like making a bunch of screaming. It's like, don't do that. We get an explanation. We see why the audio mixing was weird at a couple points of like what channels, like which side of the screen like his voice was coming from, which previously didn't seem to match. where it should be. But here it's just because his actor got like moved to a different area.
Right. And then following that, I'm trying to remember what was the reason for her to go back down? Oh, was it the fact that like they needed to find it was I think she was actually fed up.
Maybe? I don't remember why. She just kind of left and they were trying to figure out what the hell to do with the crane because because at one point the male actor gets kind of knocked over and by Miss Now, leading to him falling onto like one of the crew members, completely knocking over their camera crane setup for the final shot, which is supposed to be a smooth, like, rising up at the end.
Right. So now the problem is, what do? They have no crane. The producer says to cut it. The director doesn't want to cut it. The daughter sees that the director is a lot like her. And so she's like, how many people is here? And then we find out why she asks that in a few minutes. So while they're trying to figure out the crane issue, they find out that they're having an axe issue because they need the axe for the final shot.
Right. So they just put it like in front of the shed, and they get like they put one of the set runners in. They put his legs in zombie makeup, and they just give him a sign.
And they tell her to like improv during this, which is why we have the zombie walking up and walking away. And then she gets out and finds the axe and then goes back up, where during the standoff between her and her boyfriend, Miss Mao,
she just wakes up in the middle of it.
and she's staring off into the distance. And we didn't know why in the movie, and she screams, and then our main character, she screams. But now we see why. So the director, like, tackles her back down, and she's like, what is that? And the director says, that's our crane. And it's all of the stagehands are getting on their hands and knees and stacking each other so that they can have a crane for the final shot.
Except they keep having to stop because one of the ladies keeps falling off.
So then the director like comes back in following the death of the boyfriend, and then he dies, which is where we get the whole shot of the spraying blood. And then finally they're okay. They have the pyramid ready, and we get to watch her walk over. Yeah, and see
the director gets on top, and then his daughter gets on his shoulders and takes the camera.
Which is a very nice, like, heartwarming connecting moment.
Right.
And then following that, we get the final shot where it's the money shot with the pentagram. We cut back to the producers, and they're like, this was a success. It went exactly how we wanted it. Thank you, everybody.
So smooth.
And everybody's happy. The production went well. Everybody's like relieved it's over. And with that, we cut to the credits.
And over the credits, we, in an even more meta move, the credits we see the real behind the scenes filming of like the filming of the movie. Yeah.
Which you can actually watch the full version on the Blu-ray disc in the States. It's called the One Cut of the Dead GoPro version, where you can watch the entire, because it's one of the crew members with the GoPro on his head.
Right.
During the whole field sequence, he actually had to like jump and duck to avoid like getting seen. So like you see the GoPro just dive into the weeds and then go back up. But no, I love that. I love the fact that we then get footage of them filming the footage of them filming the movie of the movie.
Right. It's just like a perfectly meta way to end.
It is. And then it concludes, and
especially
the movie
with like
over.
The credits being done in the same way they were done like at the 37-minute mark.
Right. So this movie's basically chopped up into 3 parts. The movie, the pre-production of the movie, and the production of the movie.
Yeah.
Which I love. I love this movie. As a filmmaker, seeing stuff like this is always a treat for me. And I remember watching
absolutely brilliant.
It's very well done. I remember when I first watched it, I loved it. I was so happy I finally got to watch it. I didn't know what I was expecting. I didn't know what to expect going in, and I was very
wasn't
happy.
Quite feeling it at first. I was like, kind of like, okay, this. I don't understand what's so special about this. And then once you get to that 37-minute mark, you are absolutely rewarded.
Yes, and I love it. I love it. I think this is a love letter to filmmaking and the process that works.
Right.
And like to
it's
think
a very rewarding film.
It is. It's a very rewarding film. And to think that this movie made over 1,000 times its budget back speaks volumes to how
it's honestly quite inspiring.
It is. It's very inspiring. I'm so happy that this movie exists and that it did exceptionally well and is well received by critics.
Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%.
It's very nice to see this stuff. I love it. I think this is a great movie, and I think anybody who appreciates film would love this movie.
Yeah, if you're like a fan of film, especially if you're interested in like the behind the scenes of films, or like are interested in just the general, just movie making in general. Like if you have an interest in that, this is basically a must watch, I'd say.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree.
Like even if you don't really like zombie movies, if you like zombie movies, then you got to check this out. But even if you don't, there is a lot to love here.
Right. Yeah, and I think you said it best. I'd recommend it to anybody who appreciates behind the scenes stuff. Well, I don't really have much more to say. Do you?
Not really. I just really enjoy this film, and I don't know, this so far this is looking like number one. But also we've only done one film, so
number one so far for Zombie Month for both of us. Love it.
I know, ain't that shocking?
That's very shocking. Rex, if you want me to, I'm gonna go ahead and do the casting crew. Yeah.
Feel free.
So you have Shinichiro Ueda, who is the director, writer, and editor of the film. He later did One Cut of the Dead Hollywood Edition. He was the executive producer and did the screenplay for that one. Mm-hmm. One Cut of the Dead Mission Remote. He was the writer-director of that one. It's a COVID short film. It's like 46 minutes long. And it's basically the same idea, filming remotely.
Right.
He did one called Seosu Sentai Sutsu Ranger. It's a short movie. He was the director and writer of that. So it's businessmen who fight monsters.
Huh.
And then he got credit for the original story for Final Cut, the French remake. You have Koji Ichihashi. I don't have Iwata's. I think he did. Now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure, yes, he did. He got credit for all of the One Cut spin-offs.
Okay, good. I imagine that was probably like a contractual thing with their like lawsuit. But you never know. Sometimes
he got writer credit for One Cut of the Dead and original story for Final Cut, and he served as an executive producer on Final Cut. Your producer, Koji Ichihashi, was producer of One Cut of the Dead Hollywood Edition, One Cut of the Dead Mission Remote, and executive producer on Final Cut. As for your actors, Takayuki Hamatsu, director Higurashi, also was in One Cut of the Dead Hollywood Edition, One Cut of the Dead Mission Remote, and was in Kamen Rider Revis and the movie for that. Yuzuki Akiyama, who played Chinasu, was in One Cut of the Dead Hollywood Edition, Kamen Rider Zeo, and One Cut of the Dead Mission Remote. Kazuaki Nagaya, who played Ko, was in One Cut of the Dead Hollywood Edition and One Cut of the Dead Mission Remote. Harayumi Shuhama, who played Now, was in One Cut of the Dead Hollywood Edition, One Cut of the Dead Mission Remote, and Kamen Rider Revis and the movie.
Yeah, she was also in Hideaki Anno's Love and Pop.
Minabu Hoshi played Minabu Hoshoda, who was also in One Cut of the Dead Hollywood Edition and One Cut of the Dead Mission Remote. You had Hiroshi Ichihara, who played Kasahara, who was also in One Cut of the Dead Hollywood Edition, One Cut of the Dead Mission Remote. Shantaro Yamazaki.
I'm seeing that a lot of these actors returned for the various spin-offs.
They do. Shantaro Yamazaki played Shunsuke Yamakoshi, who was also in One Cut of the Dead Hollywood Edition. And then you have Shinichiro Osawa, who played Shinichiro Fugasawa, who was in Horror Mansion The Blind, One Cut of the Dead Hollywood Edition, One Cut of the Dead Mission Remote. A lot of One Cut of the Deads.
Oh, that's crazy.
So they all virtually came back for the spin-offs.
I mean, apparently, according to Letterboxd at least, one of the actresses, Donguri, who plays like one of the producers in this film, she apparently was also in the French remake Final Cut.
So the funny thing is none of these actors really were known at the time. But since then, I mean, some of them have went on to do some Kamen Rider stuff, which is exciting. Nothing too major, but I mean, still exciting nonetheless. And
yeah, so that was One Cut of the Dead. Do you have any last things to say, or?
I recommend this movie to everyone, and I think anybody who's a fan of film should watch it. I don't think zombie fans would necessarily like it, but I think film fans will.
Oh, I don't know. I actually think there's value in this for like zombie movie fans. I feel like they get a kick out of this.
They might. They very well might. I could definitely see that. But I mean, there's not a lot more I really have. Really, I think that's.
Well, I mean, that's good. That means that in the almost 3 hours we've been recording, we've covered.
Well, Rex, do you have any final thoughts?
I mean, I've pretty much already said my piece on the film with this. Yeah, I just highly recommend it.
Okay. Well, with that, Rex, I think there's one last thing we can do here.
Yes.
And that's the most noblest of podcasting traditions, the linking and the promoting of oneself. So where can the lovely listeners find you at, Rex?
Well, dear listeners, you can find me on YouTube at Rexino, on Twitter at Rex_Xenomorph, and on Instagram, Rex_Xeno. And if you want to check out some of my writing, go take a look at the Tokusatsu Network.
And as for me, hello, my name's Elijah. You can find me on Twitter at ET13 Productions, on Instagram where you can see my toy photography at ET13 Productions, or on YouTube where I post most of my short films. You can check out my most recent one, SOS Seek Shelter, on the YouTube channel ET13 Productions. I am also one of the main hosts of the Kaiju Weekly News Show every Sunday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, if that's something that interests you. I am also a member of Monsters with Attitude, a monthly live stream that talks about the wide world of giant monsters. Besides that, I am also a writer and contributor to Kaiju Ramen magazine. You can go to kaijuramenmedia.com. You can read my articles for the news, and you can order any of the 10 issues that we have published. Issue 10 should be shipping out pretty soon. I know pre-orders are probably closed by now for it. Outside of that, you can order the PDF versions of all the different issues of the magazine. Besides that, you can also find my writing in Giant Bug Cinema and Monster Kids Guide on Amazon through Kindle or physical paperback or hardcover, where I wrote an essay or a review on Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. And I think that's all I do. I'm pretty sure. I am the head of the video department for Kaiju Ramen Media. So if you want to check out some videos I've edited, go to Kaiju Ramen on YouTube, where you can check out all the videos I've edited and, again, the live streams that I'm a part of. I think that's it. I'm pretty sure that's it. But as for the podcast, don't forget to write us on iTunes. That boosts our ratings and helps us get recommended to more people just like you. If you don't have an Apple device, which I don't blame you, I don't. That's a lie. I literally admitted that early in the recording. I do a MacBook. I use a MacBook to do this podcast.
Disappointing.
But you can rate us on Spotify now. That's something you can do. You can give us a 5-star rating on Spotify. That'd be highly appreciated. If you want to stay up to date with all things Kaiju Conversation related, follow us on Twitter at KAIJU_CONVERS. If you don't have Twitter, you can follow us on Instagram or like us on Facebook at the same handle. If you're like me before podcasting and you don't have any social media, lucky you, you can email us at kaijuconversation@gmail.com, all lowercase, all one word, you know the drill. And as always, we'll read your reviews on air for everyone to hear. We also have a Teespring store. Eventually, we're going to have original artwork on there, but until then, you can sport our awesome logo on a t-shirt or maybe even like a coffee mug. If you'd like to chat with Rex and I, check out our Discord server full of others that have similar interests to you. Recently, in our General 1 chat, there was a conversation about the similarities between giant horrid beast Nezera from the Nezera 1964 and Jiger from Gamera Rebirth, the animated series. It's a great community full of great people, a lot of great conversations on there. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you can be notified anytime we upload a video. We sometimes post exclusives to the channel like bloopers for episodes or minisodes talking about news or other subjects. We have a monthly show called Kaiju Conversation Live where we have guests on talking about a wide range of topics. We also have an interview with Mechagodzilla designer Jared Kerchevsky on the channel. I definitely butchered his name. I really apologize. I'm so sorry. A huge thanks to Rex for editing all of these episodes and all the other content we upload. His links can be found in the description below. Along with Rex, we'd like to give a huge thanks and shout out to Danny DeManna of the Godzilla Novelization Project for his amazing vocals on our theme song. You can support him by following him on Twitter at Danzilla93_GNP or visit his website, GodzillaNovelizationProject.com. And a huge thanks to Grattan Conwell from the podcast Giant Monster BS for composing the music for our theme song. You can support him by following the podcast on Twitter at Giant Monster BS or on any podcast platform under the name Giant Monster BS. And with that, we're going to wrap things up here. So thank you guys so much for listening. And as always, please remember, life's too short to not talk big. Bye, guys.
Bye.
We are set, we are in debt, there's nothing to sweat. Life's too short now, baby. And not too big now, baby. Conversation. His name's Elijah, baby. And also Rex now, baby. We love those kaiju, baby. And you will too now.